stumble through it, but I kind of, I'm not as young as I used to be. Standardized, it seems like
If everybody can find their seats, please, we're going to begin our meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Barnstable Town Council meeting, February 16th, 2023. If we could do the roll call, please, Town Clerk Ann Quirk.
Councilors, Atzelis.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Cusack.
Present.
Rapp Grassetti.
Present.
Levesque.
Here.
Ludke.
Here.
Mendes.
Here.
Neary.
Here.
Schnapp.
Here.
Shaughnessy.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
We have 13.
Thank you. If we can all please rise, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you can remain standing, first we're going to have Councilor Starr give a moment of silence for longtime Barnstable resident John Ellis, who passed this week, and then after that, Councilor Mendes is going to speak about John Reed, leader of the NAACP and friend to all here in the town of Barnstable in many ways. So thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'd like us to keep in our minds and our hearts one of the hearts and souls of Barnstable Village who died last week, James Otis Ellis. He was known as the local blacksmith. He's been a blacksmith for 44 years himself, and his relatives go back 111 years in Barnstable Village as blacksmith. So he's been there a long while. The 11th generation Cape Codder. He started trap fishing in Barnstable Harbor when he was 9. So he loved history. You could bring him a picture of anybody from the village, and he knew exactly who they were and how, who they were standing next to. So it's a big piece of Barnstable Village we're going to miss. He and Joan, his wife, live right across the street from the Superior Courthouse with the big columns that she continually complains about because they don't look painted well enough or something. So Joni, they've been involved in the village for a long while, and they just have open hearts and an open house, and we're going to miss them. Thank you.
I'd like to wish condolences to Mrs. Reed. A lot of you probably know Mr. Reed. I call him Mr. Reed, out of respect, always have. John Reed, as being the leader of the NAACP. But he was actually a longtime school teacher in Barnstable. And he was known as the Black Ninja because he would always catch us doing anything. He individually probably had more impact on kids in this town than any other teacher. He founded the first multicultural club on the Cape, which was called the Yamani Club. He would take us to events at UMass, Maryland, Northeastern, BU, events to give us kids from the Cape exposure to other cultures and communities. And when I say multicultural, it was everybody, Hispanic, white, black, Cape Verdean like myself, everybody was involved. And Mr. Reed was the type of teacher where you knew exactly where you stood with him. He would have some very unique punishments. One was the crab walk. If he caught you talking in his class, he'd make you get down on a crab and walk around his class until the class was over. Another one was he would make you look up at the ceiling tiles and count all the dots in the ceiling tiles. So that was the type of person Mr. Reed was, but he was also very fair. If you were to get in trouble, because I got in trouble quite often, he wouldn't bring you to the principal. He would call you father, which was even worse. So he was a pillar of the community, a very fair man, a social justice warrior, and we will all miss him immensely. That's it.
Please observe a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Thank you, Council Starr and Council Mendes. Now it's time for public comment. If anybody here in the hearing room would like to speak first, you please come forward, sign in, state your name, and you'd have 3 minutes. Anybody here? Okay, not seeing any. Go to Director Poyon. Do we have anybody that would like to participate remotely?
Good evening. We do. We have Dr. Laurel Shader, who is here for public comment.
Hi, Dr. Shader.
Hi.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Should I go ahead now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. So good evening, Council President Levesque, town councilors, and residents of Barnstable. I'm here tonight to share an update about our CDC-funded water quality and health study called the Massachusetts PFAS and Your Health Study. I'd like to reiterate our request for all of you to help in sharing information about the study with Barnstable residents and promoting it. I'll also let you know about an upcoming event on March 25th that we hope you'll all attend. As I've shared before, Silent Spring Institute is leading one of 7 studies within a broader national study that is being funded and coordinated by the CDC and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. The goal of this multi-site study is to learn how PFAS chemicals can affect the health of adults and children. CDC had a selection process for research teams to be part of the study. Not every research team or community who wanted to be part of the study was included. So Barnstable has a unique opportunity and I would say responsibility to do all that we can to reach our recruitment goal. We're grateful for the town councilor's letter of support back in 2019, which helped us successfully apply to be part of the study. Our research team at Silent Spring Institute is working with other researchers at Harvard School of Public Health and Eastern Research Group to conduct the study. We're also proud to be partnering with Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition, our sister organization, who is leading up the recruitment efforts in Hyannis. MBCC's executive director, Cheryl Osimo, and longtime volunteer, Betty Ann Beavis, have been working tirelessly to support recruitment. This has included informational tables at the rec center, grocery stores, Barnstable Adult Community Center, and other venues. Door-to-door canvassing, training new recruiters, including high school students, and reaching out to town officials, community organizations, faith-based organizations, and other community leaders to identify new opportunities for our team to recruit. As a reminder, our goal is to recruit 1,000 adults and 300 children across Hyannis and the town of Ayer, which is the other community in our study. We set a goal of enrolling 700 adults and 200 children here in Hyannis, which is the community twice the size of Ayer. When I last presented in early October, we had completed study office visits for 224 participants. So as of today, we have now had 294 participants, so 70 more, complete their appointments, including 261 adults and 33 children. We're grateful to everyone who has participated, including some of you on the town council who mentioned your participation during the last time I spoke. But that's only 1/3 of the people that we need. We are currently required to complete data collection by the end of May. We may be able to extend that by a couple of months, but clearly we need to pick up the pace in order to be able to come close to meeting our goal. I'd like to reiterate our request for your help in getting the word out to Barnstable community members. We have started door-to-door canvassing and welcome you to join our team, which has been going out most Saturdays to share information about the study. In particular, we hope that those of you whose precincts include parts of Hyannis will be able to help us reach your constituents. We'd love to have you make a video or share a photo and quote about why the study is important to you and why people should sign up that we can use on social media. Please consider putting out a yard sign to increase visibility. And if you're part of a faith community or other organization, please invite our team to give a presentation or share printed materials. And please feel free to share information about our study in your newsletters or other communications that you have with constituents. And please help us extend our recruitment to schools where we have had limited opportunities for recruitment. And finally, I wanted to invite all of you to save the date on Saturday, March 25th. Silent Spring and MBCC have been working with the Barnstable Youth Commission and environmental clubs from Barnstable High and Sturgis to plan a community event to raise awareness about our study and increase general knowledge about PFAS and water quality in the community. Our event will be held at 1 p.m. at 529 Main Street in Hyannis. The event will feature short films about PFAS and panel discussions, and we're planning to offer food and work with students to make it a fun and inviting event. Greater Hyannis Civic Association President Betsy Young will be a panelist, and State Senator Julian Sear has agreed tentatively, based on his schedule, to attend and provide information about his proposed legislation to address PFAS statewide. We are currently planning for additional panelists as we finalize the agenda. So we hope that all of you will attend and help us share word about the study. So in conclusion, time is running out. I hope our team can count on all of you to help spread the word and provide our team greater opportunities to recruit to ensure the success of our study. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Shader. Is there any other?
There is no other public
Okay.
comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that being said, any council response to Dr. Shader and her presentation update? Council Lutke, please.
Yes, I really appreciate the update. I'm sad to see the numbers haven't gone higher. I know I've spoken before on this. My particular precinct has 100% overlap with the Hyannis water system. I hope to get out myself and start to do door-to-door now that I am feeling a lot better. When I do talk to people, I'm still actually shocked when people have no idea what PFAS is, no idea it was in the water, no clue about it whatsoever. It really seems a disconnect. And then other people say, well, I don't drink the water's so horrible, I never drank it. I boil, and I said, I said, did you cook with it? Because the PFAS doesn't disappear with boiling. And I also want to say, and maybe Dr. Shader's still there, that even summer people can participate in this. They need, for their data, they need all sorts of levels of exposure. So even those that weren't here full time drinking the water, if you cooked with it, if you were just here a few months of the year, you're still an important participant. So I think it behooves all of us as town councilors to do again what we can to help us participate fully in this study from Barnstable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. It occurred to me as Councilor Lutke was speaking, I was wondering if making this connection with our town's drinking water, the town's municipal water supply, if a notice could be developed or this flyer go out with the water bills, or however, I don't get town water, so I'm not quite familiar about how the bills are being delivered, either paper or electronically, but I was wondering if we could pitch it that way through the billing system, similar to the way that the town successfully used the town census to carry the survey that was done for communications. It's just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Any other response on this side? Anybody like to respond on this side? Councilor Steinhuber, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of information, I think, we need to be careful with the language we use here. There's no danger to drinking water, to cook with, drink with in the town. So people need to be clear on that. And where there were issues in wells, we've installed filters that take care of the PFAS problem. So we just got to be careful how we talk about this. There's no issue with the drinking water. You can drink it, you can bathe with it, you can cook with it. It's fine to use.
Thank you, Councilor Steinhuber. Any other council response? Actually, Director Santos, would you mind? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you just speak to that from the amount of PFAS? Like, I understand where we were years ago with Hyannis water, but like the Straightway well has been brought up in topic in council, in prior meetings. Just what is the status right now with PFAS and Hyannis water?
Okay, sure. Dan Santos, Director of Public Works.
Thank you.
So we currently treat all of our wells that are supplying public water supply. There is no PFAS in the Hyannis water system's water. All of our wells are treated, and all of the results of very frequent testing are non-detectable for PFAS.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. appreciate that clarification. Any other council communications? I'm sorry, I should say comments, response to comment. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Shader, for the update, and look forward to hearing the results, and we do hope that they continue to increase as time moves on. Now it is time for Town Manager Communications, and we have initiated something new and hopefully improved. This is our plan anyway, and and trying to save time and also make something more readily available for our public on a different forum. And we're trying to utilize Channel 18 and their help. And thank you, Director Poyant. If you could give kudos to everybody over at Channel 18, if you guys can hear me, which I'm sure you can. Thank you very much for participating and helping us, again, try to improve this line of communication. So the Town Manager's report has been pre-recorded and is available to Town Council and the public. And the report will be prepared in written form and posted on the Town Manager's website as in the past. The Town Manager will be available to answer any questions regarding the report as presented, and that's just going to happen in a few minutes. And the Town Manager's communications for the period of February 3rd to February 16th, 2023 included an update on the budget action calendar, the meeting with the Lieutenant Governor regarding proposed changes to Title V, the Great Streets of Hyannis project, the local comprehensive plan, the 2023 beach sticker sales, waters resource management planning by DPW, and Barnstable Public Schools Superintendent presentation to school committee report of entry findings by our Superintendent of Schools, Sarah Ahern. So with that, the council was forwarded that information and also the video presentations. And does the council have any questions in regards to any of these items for either Town Manager Elves or Superintendent of Schools Sarah Ahern, who's also in the room? Looking to my left. Does anybody? Council Paula Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And I'm assuming this question's for Town Manager Ells?
It's for Town Manager Ells.
Welcome, Town Manager Ells, to the podium.
Thank you for the report. I have not had a chance to watch it yet, but I did have a chance to read it. I had two questions, one that is part of your report and one which I hope to have as a future information. So obviously everything about the Title V DEP regulations has been front and center for us, and I wanted to commend you and your staff for the excellent response, the public response that was made, I believe, and delivered before January 31st. So just wanted to make a record of that.
Thank you.
The first question was, did they extend that public response, or is that closed now, or is that completed?
My understanding is that public response closed as scheduled. I think it was the last day of January. That's my understanding. So at this point, it's been taken under review, and we anticipate that DEP will be reaching out to us to talk about those comments made in that period of time. That's my understanding. I haven't seen a formal announcement of that anywhere. So,
Okay.
yep.
Was there any sense of what happened at yesterday's meeting that gives us any hope for some?
Guess you have to define hope. It's so I believe it was a very productive meeting.
And just for point of information, that's in regard to the Lieutenant Governor meeting proposed changes to Title V regulations for those who are listening and are in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a meeting that was chaired by Mark Forrest that brought together elected and administrative staff from across the Cape to have a meeting with our newly elected Lieutenant Governor. It was somewhat of an introduction, though she had one as well at the MMA conference in Boston by a similar group. And we continued to talk about how the adoption of these regulations, which leads me to believe that they are proceeding to adoption, the adoption of these regulations will review and hopefully include many of the comments that we've made. Mark Milne and I were very fortunate to lead off this and kind of frame this discussion for the Lieutenant Governor on behalf of the Cape. President Levesque was there as well. And we really talked about the regulations and how we need to make sure that communities with approved CWMPs can seamlessly transition into a nitrogen management plan, and therefore our residents can continue to support our approved CWMP, which is primarily but not limited to sewer expansion, and they won't have to do all of these other things. That was one major point. Also the interim, and I'm not sure if that's the actual word, interim DPW commissioner was there as well. At a subsequent meeting and talked to me before the meeting, and he wasn't at the meeting with Lieutenant Governor, but the next meeting will be with him and the Lieutenant Governor and this group again. So we'll continue to talk about the comments made. The other portion of it was to talk about, though not related to the regulation directly, indirectly yes, funding and the ability to access additional capital funding for the hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be spent by communities across Cape Cod. And this is very much, even though this is a state of Massachusetts regulation, this is very much a Cape Cod issue. And so we had that discussion as well. We began to identify opportunities, the types of subsidy, both from municipalities, from the state, and from the federal government would be needed for us to successfully continue moving forward. And also in there, we talked about realistic timeframes, the ability to implement, how every community has a different time frame for implementation of an approved CWMP. So it's a work in progress. I don't think they're going to just adopt what they proposed. I think they're going to sit down with us. Again, I sat with the interim commissioner that day and then today again. And I believe that we'll do a thorough review, and then ultimately they'll adopt a set of regulations. And then the next kind of challenge, we still got to try to secure the funding, will be how it is interpreted and implemented by the regulators. So until that happens, you really don't know exactly how that will happen. So that's the way it's progressing. And it was a good dialogue. I think the Lieutenant Governor is much more understanding of the issues that we have, kind of the practical issues, the financial issues associated, the concern about the regulatory issues and where we each are in trying to proceed with this. So, yeah, sorry, that's a long answer, but
I think
I
it's
would describe
worthy
it.
of, the issue's worthy of it, so thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
My second question has to do with a DLS, or Division of Local Services report that came out Monday, I believe, and had to do with the opioid settlement. And it was interesting to note that Barnstable has already received close to $370,000, and it stands to, receive quite a bit more in the next couple of years. Do we currently have a plan for using those funds? Or and again, that's why I'm saying I don't expect an answer tonight, but I would really be interested in how we're going to use those funds going forward in the community.
And so we would like to respond to you, but not tonight. Attorney Nober and Mark Milne, from their respective areas, are helping with framing eligible expenses. We're also looking at whether it's us or whether it's some of the many service providers that we have in the area, and then come forward with a recommended plan. So that's what we're doing. It's under review, and more than happy to share that as we progress with it. You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Any other question, comment on this side? Councilor Epcasetti, please.
Thank you, President Levesque, and thank you, Mark. So in your report with regard to the Great Streets Hyannis project, you talk about conversion of the traffic network to two ways with the addition of bike lanes can be accomplished near term. Can you define what near term is and what short term intervention is? Because I know comment period is through March 19th.
Yep.
So just wondering about timeline on that.
Sure. Well, I know Elizabeth Jenkins, our Director of Planning and Development, is here. So, Elizabeth, if you want to come up, maybe you can, rather than me ask you and then have to answer, you can come on up and answer. Thank you.
And just for another point of information, we also have Director Santos here to answer any questions in regards to the wastewater management plan. So, thank you. Director Jenkins, please.
Thank you, President Levesque, Councilors. Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development. Thank you for your attention to the project. Councilor Rapgrassetti, yes, I do note that public comment is open for the next month or so. For those who may not have been able to attend the last event at Barnstable High School and see Mr. Speck and Mr. Schreiber in person, that presentation is recorded, and all of those concepts that were provided on those boards are available online for the public. Again, as noted, I think this project is envisioned, again, assuming a lot of things. I think, a sort of an assurance that we have community consensus coming out of this comment period, an ability to advance the designs and negotiations necessary to make this work. There are some very important details, like the design of the 6 points intersection on a temporary basis, for example, that I think are incredibly important, that we bring our sort of community leaders in public works and the hospital and police and fire on together. And full disclosure, we have not done that. We're still in this sort of conceptual design phase. But I believe, based on the experience that our team has had in other communities, that, through what we're sort of informally calling a lines and signs approach, restriping our existing pavement, either taking down or temporarily shutting down the traffic signals on Hyannis Main Street, some shorter term intersection reconfigurations to be able to accomplish what's necessary, that a project, again, if properly designed and funded, could happen in 2024. It would need to happen either spring or summer in the off season, but we think that time frame should, again, the resources and capacity come together, that would be reasonable.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jenkins. Any other?
I just did have one question, because I see Charlie McLaughlin here with regards to, we talk about our CWMP and the new regulations from Title V. We still have people that are delinquent in connection at our current sewer at Stewart's Creek, and I see Charlie is going to be addressing Board of Health. Are you suggesting that there be a definitive timeline for those connections, or what do you see that happening?
Well, I mean, certainly Attorney McLaughlin can share with you whatever he's planning to share with Board of Health, but that authority does fall under the Board of Health. Once the sewer is operable in front of your property, you're supposed to connect. It's supposed to connect as soon as possible, not connect within a time period. As soon as possible is probably just a practical measure of time, not a 12-month, 6-month, et cetera. But the Board of Health does have the authority to waive that. So I defer to Attorney McLaughlin as to what he's suggesting relevant to that. That's why many have not connected, because there is that provision. And the Board of Health does have that authority.
And do you anticipate that with regard to all the new sewers going in, that people can waive the right to connect?
The people can't waive it. The Board of Health would have to waive it.
No, but
Right.
have the ability to apply for a waiver.
That isn't our intent. No, our intent is to have them connect as soon as is practical.
Okay.
So we're...
That's got to be defined too. What's
It
practical.
will, especially when we have thousands of people required to connect and only so many contractors.
Right.
And so there's a very practical aspect to this. We certainly don't want to penalize those people who just can't get it done. On the flip side, we don't want people to unnecessarily wait to connect. So
Okay, well,
it's not really a simple answer for
Yeah.
that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nuances to it, I'm sure, and I'll be watching the Board of Health and see how it progresses.
And I know we've worked on it. I know Director Santos has suggested timeframes like 6 months or 12 months.
Right.
But again, the authority will fall to the Board of Health, the way we're currently structured, and there has to be that practical aspect. So,
Thanks, Mark.
yep. And Title V systems, a lot of people say to me, Title V systems are functioning, or they just put one in. That doesn't remove nitrogen.
No.
So, not for that purpose. So, thank you.
Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. I have for the Manager Els, not so much a question, but a comment. And I appreciate what the staff has done at the Adult Community Center to be available, have staff be available to help people with their 2023 beach parking permits. So it's nice that, especially for the elders or those that might not be computer savvy or might not have a computer, that there's this opportunity in venue. So appreciate that staff has that, is taking that step.
Yes, we've been doing that through the process, but thank you. We'll continue to do it.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Councilor Lucky, did you have a comment? Okay. Madam Vice President, please.
It never gets old. I just wanted to acknowledge Superintendent Ahern and how fabulous I thought the presentation was that you gave to the school committee the other night. I provided a link through Cindy to the council to watch it because it's been a long time since we've seen or heard a vision like that with regard to our children, and it's just appreciated so much. And you know, there are other details that I shared with you that I have major concerns about, but that vision is something that we've been waiting for a long time. And I'm really thankful for it. And I really love the switch from like taking the high ground on dual language learning. I think is an absolute a must for marketing our schools in Barnstable and getting us up where we need to be, where the rest of the town is. AAA status, that's what we're shooting for. So I really appreciate that, and I just wanted to acknowledge you and publicly for that. So thank you.
And now that presentation is available for all the public, and that is for a point of clarification, how that would be presented on Channel 18. Will that still be attached to the town meeting, and that will lead the town meeting on channel tomorrow at 9 a.m.?
Yes, it actually led tonight. It started before this meeting.
Right.
And anytime the town council meeting is aired, it will precede it. This particular episode was an hour long.
Right. So there was presentations from not only from Mark Ells and our superintendent of schools, but also from Kelly from DPW in regards to our water resource management planning. There's also a presentation and update on local comprehensive plan. And so please, if you are listening and you did miss it, and you were expecting to see that during this meeting starting at 7 o'clock, if you go back tomorrow morning and moving forward, it will be on a show on Channel 18, and it'll also be able to be, you can stream it live from your own home. Okay, Lynn?
I'd also like to mention that since we provide a town council summary in each edition of e-news, there will be a link there for that as well.
Excellent. Okay, so you can't miss it. And there it is, all that great information there at your fingertips. So please, I encourage you to watch all of it if you can. It was a great presentation, and I look forward to seeing more of that moving forward. So, any other, before I close response, and moving on to our roads workshop? Okay, not seeing any. Let's move on to the next item on our agenda. Bullet point there is workshop on private roads from Town Manager Mark Ells.
Well, good evening again, Mark Ells, Town Manager. Lynn, am I going to need the clicker? Thank you. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to continue our discussion relevant to private roads. We actually, the last update we did for council was back in July of 2022. We did a workshop. I'm going to summarize real quickly what we talked about then. I'm going to move into then what's before you tonight, which is item 2023-131. That's a consideration relevant to water and sewer construction and the state revolving fund eligibility for drinking water and clean water projects. It's a requirement of that, and how we are proceeding with satisfying it. But I think the most important part of at least the presentation that or the workshop that I'm giving is to discuss future policy regarding private roads. Real quick, and these are stats we shared back in July and have shared them historically with councils. I know we have 2 new councilors here, so hopefully this is, a refresher for some and new to at least 2. So we've got about 450 miles of roads in Barnstable, and 250 miles of them are public and 200 miles are private. About 700 public roads and about 1,100 private roads. And about 58% of our residents live on public roads and about 42% live on private roads. So that's a lot of roads. Gives you the feeling for how they're divided. And those that are public have a more dense or intense use on them. Not surprising. This is a map that's online. It's available on the Public Works website. It's a draft map of town and private roads, so you can go in and you can, zoom in on it and look to see your neighborhood, your road, how you're listed. That's the most frequent way people look at this. And so it's helpful, but, again, we have a large roadway infrastructure in Barnstable, and there are more private roads than public, even though there are more lineal miles of public road than private road. A lot of these private roads are the smaller residential roads that have been developed in, 70s, in the 70s, in the 80s, that weren't accepted by back then selectmen, and now we're well into their useful life, and they are in varying condition, okay? Some have been maintained, some have not. Now, to also give you a feeling for what we're spending on public roads, we have a pavement management program. Every year we ask you for capital funds. That's not the only capital funding we have, but it has been a consistent cash appropriation to maintain our public roadway infrastructure, our 250 miles of public roads. And we are maintaining those roads. And we are managing them professionally. And there is also a corresponding operating budget. And that corresponding operating budget really services the roads in 2 areas, engineering and admin, and then highway. Now, engineering and admin has a total operating budget of $1.9 million, mostly people. And that is for all of what engineering and admin do. So we would have to segment out how much of that goes toward roads. Highway, its purpose is to maintain public roads. So that in its entirety is there to service our public roadways, to do the operation and maintenance, and that's both salaries and expenses. Private roads, there is not a budget for, though we do spend money from time to time on private roads, mostly in what we categorize as emergency response, so that we don't have a private road reach the point where emergency vehicles or even school buses can safely traverse them. Public Works does its best to try to keep those in a safe and functional manner, though many are nowhere near the quality of road that our public roads are. Obviously, because we don't maintain those roads. Now, our Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee has historically said that we need to develop a policy relevant to our private roads. I have made the recommendation to you, and I made it in July, but I've been involved with these issues for decades. We're making a significant investment in our roadways. These roads will be, and you'll see a map in a minute that'll illustrate this, these roads are public and private. People live on both. If you don't know the difference, they look exactly the same, okay? Maybe the road isn't in as good a shape on a private road, but, otherwise, they look the same. We're moving forward with our wastewater plan, our sewer expansion. As part of that, we go back in, and we are going to be repaving these roads. We're also going to be looking at the utilities under it. It's my recommendation. It's a collective recommendation with, I'm certainly Director Santos. He and I talk about this regularly, but we need a policy regarding, are we going to take these roads and are we going to municipally manage these roads once we've invested in restoring these roads post, for example, installation of sewers? Our concern is that, okay, yeah, day one, even through year 5, these may hold up quite well, depending on if we, construction was great, and if we address drainage. We intend to do good construction. But without that commitment to long-term maintenance, the roads will more quickly deteriorate and ultimately end up back in a condition that many of our residents, and certainly we, do not want to see this investment, result in. We want to see the useful life of this road extend as long as it possibly can. Maintenance is a big part of that when you get out multiple years, okay? First 5, not so much. After that, absolutely. And we do varying degrees of maintenance in highway on public roads. So back in July, I informed the council that we would be in, as we progressed with sewer expansion, to ask for the council to certify as to the right to install utilities. And that's what 2023-131 is that's before you tonight. Now, we already have water in these roads. We actually already have easements on these roads. DEP is asking for a very clear statement for us to be eligible for state revolving funds. So what's before you tonight is what will satisfy DEP. So when we go to DEP for our sewer project, and we also go for water projects, by the way, but in this case, sewer projects, when we go to DEP to get our state revolving funds, we can check this box. In the past, 10 years ago when we did this, they really weren't asking for this. But this is part of it. If we want the money, if we want the principal subsidies, we have to do this. The way we're proposing it in 131 is with an easement for water and sewer, okay? That's not what I'm going to say in a little while to you, though, as a long-term discussion item. Sorry, I apologize. Sewer expansion, a little bit light here for some reason, but you can see right through the core down 28, heading east to west, is our phase sewer expansion. It's a pink color, it's a green color, it's a yellow color for our phase 1, 2, and 3. More visible, certainly, is the ongoing project along Finney's Lane and the sewer expansion. The dark roads there are public. The orange-colored roads are private. This is our first neighborhood expansion. You can see the number of private roads. This is how it will be. This is how it is throughout the town of Barnstable. And this is how it will be as we progress forward with sewering. Okay? But right now, what we're asking for is an easement for water and sewer, and that will satisfy the SRF. We could also have asked for the taking of the road, which is different. And Certainly, Attorney McLaughlin's here if you want to get into the legal aspects of that, but that isn't something we're ready to do right now. In fact, we need a policy from the town council if that's the way we're going to proceed. I put up here just that there's a very rigorous state revolving fund process that we need to be able to check every box so that we can secure those funds for water projects and sewer projects. There's a timeline we have to follow, and we need to adhere to it or we don't get the money. This is the only way that state or federal grant money, principal subsidies is the term that we use, because these are loans, grant money will come to us. So if we choose not to do this for some reason, then we will lose low interest or no interest loans, and we will lose the millions of dollars that we are currently receiving for these projects. So that's before you later on tonight, and certainly we can leave that until, and Attorney McLaughlin will be providing that overview, unless I cover everything, and then he'll just have to stand up here and answer questions. Beyond that, and really the core of the workshop that I wanted to have with you is to answer this question, and it is, should we proceed with the taking of private roads? And in that question, it is, and we are going to bring to you this easement request in batches. We'll be back again. We're not done with this Finney's Lane project. The reason we do it in batches is we have to go in, we have to do research. If a property changes ownership, the way that we do this, we got to do it all over again. So we do a bunch, bring them in. Do a bunch, bring them in. That's the way for the next 30 years this is going to progress. We expect to bring this in quarterly. Now, I'd have to talk with the legal and DPW about if we move to the taking of private roads, what that time increment would be and how often we'd come before council. It's not an unsimilar process, but it's not the same process. But my recommendation, well, first of all, I'd like to get the question answered, do you want us to proceed? Because it's a substantial effort. Second of all, I think there's a logical order to do this. I think the order is to do it concurrent with our comprehensive wastewater management plan as we're going into the neighborhoods across our community and as we're putting in sewers, because at the same time, for example, the DPW Water Supply Division, which services primarily Hyannis, is going to be looking at whether they're going to replace water lines when they have the road open. We're going to be looking at whether we repair drainage. And there may be other utilities, as we're all familiar with, that may go in at the same time as well. But that's the time to be doing this, okay? We can either do it by easement or we can look to the taking. Different process. Both will satisfy DEP. So I'd like to know if you'd like us to proceed with that. Beyond that, we have residents, we have roadways and residents in Barnstable who have invested, who have come to us and said, our roadway is in such disrepair, can you do anything? And they collectively come together and say to us, we will pay for this if you repair it on our behalf. And we have done that. I believe that second tier, we should be going back and looking at all of those, and we should be looking at taking those. If you go back to the original roads committee that I was here for in '94, and again in '96, and again in 2000 and up till 2002, the recommendation was after a neighborhood did this, we took the road. That stopped in 2004. And it stopped because of that funding discussion. And it was never, we put it before a roads committee, and then we never came back to these core questions. We went in a lot of directions, did a lot of stuff relevant to private roads, but we never came back to that taking. And in fact, there haven't been any taken, to my knowledge, since 2004. I think we should do it for those that participate in the temporary repair to private roads, and I think we should also do it for those roadways in town prior to implementing the CWMP that have been sewered, because we've gone in and redone those roads as well. I also think there's about 60, maybe a couple more than 60 primary and collector roads. These are major roads in town that if you look at them, you would never believe they were private, but they are. I think we should look at those. And then finally, we should get to all the remaining private roads, because our residents don't know. They pay the same taxes. Their buses come down their road and the police, and they're open for public use, and it's very confusing. Now, this will take time. CWMP, we're 2 years into a 30-year program. But I think we got to set policy first, and then I think we need to go forward in a very logical way. It took a long time to get here. It's going to take time to get through it. But ultimately, staying focused on this, that I do believe the municipality is the best entity to maintain these roads so that they're functional and safe. And I would like to have that discussion with the town council. And I do not want to proceed too far because of the level of effort it entails without your concurrence and some directive-type policy on this. And that's my ask at this point. I'll leave that one back up there. But so, here to discuss, Director Santos is here, Charlie McLaughlin is here.
Thank you, Tom Angelos. Tom Angelos and I have been discussing this, and even before the first discussion there in July of 2022, and Vice President Schnapp was also part of this discussion in that, we need to consider what we're going to do moving forward and what's the best policy. That was a little bit of an introduction. Now we have an even deeper dive introduction. So Tom Angelos is looking to get some kind of direction from our council without necessarily taking a resolve necessarily, you know what I mean? But just a thing, I would, recommend that we do move forward with this discussion. Would there be any dollar figures that would be discussed at the next meeting?
I wouldn't have another meeting until we were able to kind of project what those operating budget impacts would be. The hard part, and I'm sure you can all appreciate this, is, boy, if it's a brand new road and you don't have to do anything for 5 years, then, what's a logical way to start to add that budget to highway division primarily, probably proportionally to engineering and admin to make sure we have enough staff to be able to do what's entailed in that. But and have it kind of correspond with when the cost is incurred. So I bring that up because that could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. So I think that it's important to create the policy. We'll bring in the numbers, and then every council will have to revisit the policy to make sure they still support it. Because what happened, if you go back and look in 2004, what happened was, I think we took about 74 roads. And then we came in, I think we did it around 2002, 2-ish, and then we came in with an operating budget request for highway. And that's when it never got approved, and that's when it was put into the private roads committee. So as Public Works Director, it was very concerning because though we may not have been incurring the costs that year, we knew it was coming, we knew we had to plan for it, and we had to start maintenance, or else those roads were going to prematurely deteriorate. So that's why we're here having this conversation.
So that's why we're going to put, that's a chicken and egg. So that's why we're going to put the dollar figure out front before we make a decision in regards to that. And yes. So with that, and let's remember too that the first 2 bullet points are roads that are either already paved or going to be paved anyway. So is this something that we want to move forward with? And again, taking a different approach, not the easement approach, but actually taking the roads. In some ways, this is an opportunity to move forward and be able to preserve those roads, because if, that's again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but the idea that if we maintain these roads instead of, private associations, we're depending on them to do that. If we're doing it, the road should potentially have a longer useful life. So, and safety factors and things of that nature. So it's just some things to think about. But I would open it up to council discussion in regard to questions. So Councilor Steinhuber, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things come to mind, and it's things that we've talked about before. The President mentioned one of them, being able to fold this in from a budget perspective over time in conjunction with, funding our CWMP. That's an important aspect of this. The other one is a little more technical, but, the private roads aren't necessarily up to code, width-wise and other things. But in some of those private roads, I think it'd be really difficult to bring them to code. If they were paved as private roads, that's one thing, but if you take them, then we have to bring them up to code. And some people's yards, fences are like right up on some of these roads. So that's like a deeper dive on cataloging as we're going through this plan. Some of these private roads are conducive to that, and some just aren't going to be conducive for us taking over because you're going to be cutting into, several feet of people's landscaped yards. And that's going to happen in a lot of areas in town. So that would be another aspect I'd look at, because I don't know if there's a way that we could get around bringing a road up to code once we take it. So that's another aspect I would want to look at.
And we absolutely recognize that. Absolutely. I think in the short term for the CWMP, then you go the easement route. That's
And there'll be private associations that don't want us to take their road.
Absolutely.
That's safe to say as well.
Yeah, it's not mandatory. It's just.
Yeah, right. Something we think about moving forward. Councilor Mendes, please.
Yeah, thank you, President Levesque. We've discussed this in the past. The problem we have, especially in Hyannis, is half the road is private, half is public. Half the road is maintained, half of it isn't. If you drive through the center of Hyannis, the private roads are just crumbling. They're not safe. There's no sidewalks. The sidewalks are falling apart. There's potholes. There's flooding. So if we are going to start taking them, we have to prioritize the way that we do it, especially the high traffic roads. I live on one of these roads. Mm-hmm. People use it as a cut through, and it's not maintained. And the problem is there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, a lot of elderly people in the neighborhood. It becomes very dangerous when there's not a sidewalk, mm-hmm. because the sidewalk is all crumbled and in disarray. DPW will do what they can do, because I know there's legal issues for them maintaining the road. They'll patch it and, do the potholes, so on and so forth. But it's to a point now where these roads that were built in the 70s, as you said, are just crumbling. They're not even safe anymore. People constantly pop their tires on these roads. And as I said, there's the sidewalks are crumbling. You walk down the sidewalk with your dog, you're walking into a hole, or it's just sand. So if we're going to go down this road, we really have to prioritize those high traffic roads, because it's not fair to the people living on those roads that if they're private, we maintain them, but they're also very high traffic and open to the public, because if we maintain them, it's not going to last 5 years, because we're not going to do the same job that you would do. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Councilor Mendes. Any Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, a quick question. That $3.75 million that we appropriate for capital, how many miles of road does that usually?
Varies. We're trying to do major construction, but that actually entails everything from chip seal, crack seal, right up through reconstruction. Sometimes we don't use that. We'll come in with a specific road request. So again, it varies. We can probably, we can take a picture and bring that in next time of the last 5 years and what's been accomplished. And we also have other funding that, for example, for more major roadways, we can use a Chapter 90 funding that we get annually, usually a couple of $1 million we get. We can come in for specific projects. There are other grants. Many times planning and development will help Public Works to secure a particular type of, grant that's out there relevant to a roadway. We also have TIP funds for major roadways in town. Various corridors we have that can access federal and state funding because of that high usage. And so, but we can summarize all of that and bring it in for you and show you. We try to ask for that dollar amount in with the roads appropriation to maintain a level of service on our public roads. And we've been able to do that. Would like to even advance that. But money's always a constraint for us. So to maintain it was really our original. And at times, Public Works gets ahead. At times, they don't. With us advancing the CWMP and the sewer expansion, the end result of that is a brand-new road. So we are really in a very positive, public or private. So we are really in a very positive position to consider taking, with the knowledge and the policy that we'll be bringing in a request for an operating budget shortly thereafter, okay? And so it's really a unique opportunity where I think I completely agree with Councilor Mendez that our primary and collector roads are a priority for us, but they're not necessarily included in the CWMP. So it's a different discussion. It's a discussion about how are we going to do that where it's a private road and it's going to require $3-5 million worth of capital upgrade. Do we take it and then do it? How will we do this? Because typically, why should the residents who live on that road pay for it when you have 20,000 vehicles a day going over it? So these are the sorts of discussions that we need to engage in. It's not a one meeting. It's a decade after decade with good policy so we can begin to write this, and we have a real opportunity because we're out there and we're going to be repaving a lot of these roads. Okay?
Yeah, that was my one comment, for further thinking is just the equity issue. We've obviously had people who have already invested in their private roads. Yes. And sunk cost. We made a decision, gosh, how long ago has it been, on our sewer assessment that it would be $10,000 per household. And for some, that is a pretty, for $10,000, they're getting quite a bit. They're getting the sewer, but they're getting a new road that, if they're on a private road, that's not an additional expense that they have. So I think all of these things have to sort of be taken into consideration so that the policy we put forward is as fair as possible across the board, but also takes in consideration what you said, if there's a lot of public use of a private road, that might counterbalance, who should be paying for it. So.
And the previous councils have created the ability to use what was originally a wastewater fund that was created and expanded it to major private roadways. So there is that opportunity, but we all have to be mindful of the other discussions we're having relevant to debt exclusion votes and new sources of revenue to offset the significant cost of sewer expansion. So we need every dollar we have on the sewer side of this equation to be able to manage that as well. So, but these really at this point, yes, all of this is what we're going to discuss, but we need to begin to discuss it, set policy, and then put our people in motion to be able to implement.
Councilor Shaughnessy, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. Town Manager Els, it makes absolute sense to me that if we are going to invest taxpayer funds in the infrastructure on these roads, it would be silly not to maintain that and extend the life of that work. In taking into consideration what Councilor Mendez says about how, some of these private roads are much narrower roads than others, would it be possible, for example, with a road for us to sort of hybridize and say, okay, on this road, because it is so narrow and we don't want to cut into the neighbors' well-established yards, we'll take an easement on this one, and the easement ends here, and from there on is a taking. In other words, could we, and then as part of that, assuming if we hold the easement, we're responsible for maintaining that easement.
If it's for the road.
Right, but the easement would be, I'm assuming, something right up the middle of the road, not necessarily the whole road?
I think that all of it can be discussed. I haven't tried to sit down with legal and dissect this but I think what Councilor Steinhilber has already said about kind of that unique nature of many of our roads is absolutely true. And many of them are much less than, current roadway standards for design, yet we don't want to lose that either. So we want to keep them safe and functional, and we're going to look at every option, and we're going to come back before you or future councils, and we're going to have these discussions and try to come up with what works best, whether it's a taking, whether it's an easement. But the bottom line is, once that investment's made in that new asphalt, we want it to last as long as possible. We do a good job at maintaining public roads.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shaughnessy. Anybody else on to my left? I know Councilor Rep Cassetti had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So this policy can't come soon enough as far as I'm concerned. I think this should be something that we work on and implement as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Precinct 7 out in the western part of the town won't have the benefit of the big sewer pipes coming through. So there are a few primary or collector roads there, and I know one in particular has had the largest of the public funds because it connects to public roads, and it's a private road, and it was resurfaced and in excellent shape. To Councilor Steinhilber's point, I would hope that if we are setting a policy to take roads, that we do not have to bring them up to the highway standards or whatever, especially after Mr. Speck's presentation as far as narrowing the roads, not striping the roads, keeping them small to reduce speed, because one of the biggest complaints I get is from constituents when roads are resurfaced, people increase the speed. The potholes actually slow people down because they're maneuvering around them. So, I'm all for setting a policy to take as many of these private roads as possible, but to maintain the narrow width and the smallness of the road width, because I don't think all of them have to be engineered for. It's unfortunate, and I know I have said this before, we're in this position because of the rampant development, and everybody was on the take in the 70s and 80s. Quick, fast developments, putting down, the minimum depth, no drainage, no safety, no sidewalks. And that's unfortunate because many of our public roads do not have the benefit of sidewalks and curbing. But at the same time, so many of our villages that have private roads, I think I want to see the character of those private roads maintained. And so I'm all for setting a policy to start taking these roads.
Yeah, I really think you're going to have to do an inventory and know what can comply and what can't, and when it can't, what are our options, and then discuss it. And that's the way, this will be an iterative approach where we will have, it's not one fits all. Right. And in some cases, if it can't be safe and functional, we may not be able to take it as a public road. And we may be able to take an easement in the event that a sewer goes down there, perhaps, or water does. They have an easement to have done what they've done. But this is the sort of back and forth discussion that I would hope that we would begin and continue. That's what I'm hoping for.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Good points, Councilor Rep Cassetti. Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque, and thank you, Town Manager Ells, for that very reasonable and rational approach. So you're asking for a policy from this body. When do you need that codified to satisfy your DPW, the DEP funding sequence? I know that you showed us that little flow chart.
Great question. We'll be working on this in the coming months. We expect to be back, within I don't know when the next round's coming in here, 2 months from now, maybe. but we'll be bringing all of them in that first area that we're looking for funding within our timeframes. And then we'll have to kind of time it out as to how many roads are private and make sure that we bring them all into you so that we can submit them as part of our certification to DEP to secure future funding. So it's going to be different for each project, quite honestly. I don't know that there would be one collective effort to achieve this. It's too massive, and by the time you get to the end of doing all the title research, people will have sold their property, and we will have had to go back to the beginning and start it again. So it is going to be somewhat of a in batches sort of approach. I think very simply, if the council acknowledges that they want to proceed with this discussion of the taking of private roads. When we left the last meeting, I informed you we'd be bringing in the request for easements, and we're here. But really, and I brought up the issue of taking. I'm asking you now, do you want us to proceed with discussions of taking? If you can answer affirmatively, then we will. If we can't, then I'll come back to you again as many times as you want and continue this discussion.
I just want to give every councilor an opportunity before I make a directive to comment, and just in case there's, an opposing opinion or anything like that, I just want to be fair. So with that, does anybody else have comment in regards to this? Councilor Lutke, please. Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't finished yet.
Thank you very much, President Levesque and Councillor Lutke. As a follow-up, as I think this out, will there be an opportunity to notify the residents when those particular roads are being targeted and say, this is what a betterment, this is what an easement is, and this is what a taking, the consequences of a taking, and so that the residents are aware, and they may want to support a taking on a private road. And
I believe that we have and we will, and so far, I believe, and Director Santos is here, but I believe that the response has been positive to us.
You're welcome. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Councilor Lutke, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. Town Manager Els, what an amazing presentation, so timely, so on point to what we're discussing with the easements. It was one of my questions. When I was up in Boston, I had the opportunity to attend the seminar on private roads, and the legalities associated with those are so complex, and there were a number of towns that spoke there, and it seems like the taking makes so much sense. And I think especially as we look forward with the comprehensive wastewater management plan and the potential for an override, these additional fees are going to start piling on our residents. And I think the taking of the private roads would alleviate some of the concerns there to take the maintenance off their backs. I know in my precinct, like Councilor Mendez had said, I think our precincts back up to each other. There's so many private roads. Some of them are not on the plan, but they're literally crumbling. And people have, when I was walking around, they've broken axles and things like that on these roads. And great comments from Councilor Rep. Corsetti, too. Some of the character you don't want to lose. And that came up at the seminar in Boston, that once you take these, you've got to upgrade them. And there was also comments, and it goes back to the great streets, that the presenter had said some of these like architectural things that people are coming up with, and I would say our great streets falls into that category. He was like, these are no good. So it's something we have to weigh, whereas we're looking at the great streets and we're looking at this, we have to proceed very carefully. But I think you're very wise in looking at the takings where we're doing the easements. I really applaud that, and this is a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
To my left, Councilor Mendez would have to have a follow-up.
Thanks again, President Levesque and Mr. Els. Just one quick thing. The way that I look at this is we're going to spend $1 billion on sewer and roads. If we're going to do it, let's do it right, so we don't have to come back in 10 years and do it again. If we do not take these roads, the residents are going to have to repair them again because they're just not going to be maintained properly. So that's the way I look at it. You know, we can either spend the money up front or spend it in the back end. I'd rather spend it up front and just get it done and over with. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Councilman. I think so. Madam Vice President.
Yeah, I mean, it's a timely conversation. We've talked about it in my time on the council for sure. You know, I feel a little bit for the people who are paying the betterments and that they've borrowed sometimes 4 or 5 residents with 80% of a vote or whatever it was to redo the road. So I wonder if there's a mechanism we can discuss in relieving them of some of their debt when it comes to that or something. I don't know how many have happened in the recent past that have.
I can certainly do an inventory
Yeah,
of it.
I'd be interested to hear that.
I believe I've been asked this question before. I don't believe there is, but
Yeah.
I'll certainly relook at it.
It is no short money to redo a road. There's no doubt about that. But when they get past a certain point, it's more money to redo it than, you know. I really feel like with all of our emphasis on bike trails and biking and bike lanes and multi-use pathways and blah, 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 all this stuff, that we really need to look at safe sidewalks. Although I don't mind bikes, I really worry about shared use lanes, having seen a horrific bike accident where a J1 student was killed. It really concerns me to see bike traffic in the roads. But sidewalks, especially now that we're becoming more and more mobile as things warm up. I mean, it was 62 degrees today. Everyone was out walking their dogs. Those wide sidewalks are so awesome. So I would hope that we could really put an eye toward, you know, helping our community be healthier that way when we do it. And I'm just really interested in the kind of how we're going to grade these roads. You know, who goes first? So all of that, yeah, I think it's high time we had a discussion about this. I agree with Councilor Mendes and really everyone up here. I think you have full support for it, and I'd be definitely interested in helping hammer out some of the details. Thank you.
So I think it's safe to say that we're onto something, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that our litmus test was correct in regards to a further discussion as we even thought about moving forward with this discussion. So I appreciate that, and I think we would like to move forward and proceed with a further discussion in regards to taking private roads.
Well, thank you, and we will proceed that way. And the way I'll do it is I'll meet with staff, we'll come back to leadership, we'll discuss the type of information for the next discussion and the timing of it, and then you can schedule it appropriately.
Very good. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the council input, not only from newer members of the council and even from somebody, but also especially from Councilor Steinhilber, Councilor Rapgossetti, and Councilor Cullum, who have been around a number of years and have tackled this and really have been the driving force of even moving forward the CWMP. So as we continue with that, I very much value your input. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Town Manager Ells. So moving forward, Madam Vice President, if you could please help me act on the minutes, please.
Yes, I move that we act on the minutes from public session February 2nd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
We have first and a second. Any discussion? Not seeing any. If you could signify your approval by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
I believe that's unanimous. Now it is time for council communications from elected officials, boards, committees, staff, commission reports, correspondence, and announcements. Anybody looking to my right? Councilor Lutke, please.
Yeah, I just want to say something. It's maybe somewhat tangential, but it relates to what I think we just spoke about and something we're going to hear about. And it has to do with the 725 Main Street, the pump station for the sewer, because I've had several constituents speak to me about it, and I just wanted, mostly because of the optics of it, that parcel of land was paid for with open space money, $650,000 in 2002. At the simultaneous time, an easement, we're talking about easements tonight, there was an easement put on the property to do the sewage pumping station. So it was done simultaneously. So it stayed there from 2002. And then just recently in October,
Council
author-
Lucky, I'm not sure this is appropriate for this time of the meeting.
Oh, it's not? I thought just
I don't think
comments?
so. No, this is, I'm not really sure how to quite clarify, but I just, yeah, it's just basically not on the agenda. So it's not an agenda item to discuss 725 Main Street. But I would say if you have a question in regards to it, you can direct it towards Town Manager Ells or myself, and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. But this is more of an announcement, things that happen in the community, or if you're on a committee or a liaison to a committee, that's the type of the discussion that this will be having.
Okay,
so,
that's fine.
and maybe your question would be better directed during maybe Town Manager Communications.
All right.
Thank you.
Point of information, you can also respond to people who come to public comment and ask a question. If you're interested in doing that, that's another method. It's just that we can't discuss things that aren't noticed, because then people don't know to tune in. That's really
And actually, I think it has to do with the open meeting law. Yeah. I could be wrong on that, but I think it does. Any other announcements? Did you have any announcements? Or Madam Vice President, please.
I'm going to steal your thunder because I saw you write it down too. I want to talk about the Youth Commission's job fair coming up Wednesday, March 8th from 2:30 to 5 at the HYCC. We have a bunch of local companies looking for help from teenagers 14 to 18 years old. Although I warn you, they're a crew, the 14 to 18-year-olds. No, but the Youth Commission does this effort. This is their 7th annual one. They do a great job just hooking kids up with jobs and getting them their first experience often. So if you know any kids or that need work, it's a good spot.
Could you repeat that date and time?
Yes, definitely. It's Wednesday, March 8th from 2:30 to 5 o'clock at the HYCC.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Anybody else? I would like to mention just a couple of things that are moving forward. Speaking of the Barnstable Youth Commission, they actually are going to be presenting at our next meeting, our first meeting in March. And one of the things that they'll be presenting is the things that they're doing, what things that they're up to, one being the job fair. I spoke with the chairman of the board, Izzy Rudy, and Madam Chairwoman rather, of the Youth Commission. And she's doing a great job, and so we're talking about the job fair, the upcoming youth summit that they do for the 7th graders, and the One Love program that they do in the high school in April, amongst some other things. So I would like to let the council know of that. If you're looking for more information in regards to that, please don't hesitate to ask. But I thought it was important that we have them come before these events actually take place, instead of getting kind of a report after they take place. I thought it would be important to get it in front of us, and I believe when I first became a counselor, that's what was happening before, so I just want to get back to that. So, and then also our first meeting in April, we're going to have a very robust discussion and in regards to the possibility of putting on the ballot a debt exclusion override, and what that might look like. Obviously, fearless town clerk Ann Quirk will be part of that discussion, as well as our town manager and town finance director Mark Milne. So, just to name a few, and so that we will. Special guest stars, yes. Thank you. Is this the Love Boat? That was the first meeting in April that we'll be having that, just to give you a heads up on that. Obviously, a very important topic and a heavy lift in a lot of ways. So I just want to give the council as much of a heads up as possible. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Any other announcements? Councilor Atzlis, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just remembered. So I'm in the process of working with DPW to schedule a meeting, Precinct 4, or anyone's welcome to attend, early March, to provide an update on Mothers Park and what's happening with Mothers Park Road, and of course what's going to be happening with the pump station that's going to be in that location. So that'll be in early March. Certainly we'll have dates secured probably in the next couple of days, and announcements will go out accordingly. And we found those lawn signs seem to work pretty well, so we might have to get some of those together. And then later in the month of March, we'll be having another meeting to discuss safety issues on Main Street in Centerville and surrounding areas, but primarily Main Street, Centerville, pedestrian safety, those type of things. So that'll be later on in March. So again, those dates will be secured and announcements will be going out once we have those dates secured.
Thank you, Councilor Atsilis. Any other? Okay. Okay, that being said, that would end council communications, and coming up, we have a presentation of the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance, and with Doreen Leggett, Head of Communications, and we'll start the orders of the day. And to just give you some time to get ready, we're just going to take a quick break for about 5 minutes, and we'll come back, give you some time to set up, okay? Thank you very much. Did you say yes?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know that,
Hey, we begin to find our seats. We're going to get back to the orders of the day.
are we the orders of the day?
Just want to welcome everybody back to Barnstable Town Council meeting, February 16, 2023. We're moving through our agenda, and who we have before us is we have the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance with Doreen Leggett and Eric Hess, and Doreen is the communications officer for the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance, and they're just here to give us an update. Thank you for your patience. I know you've been asking to be put on our agenda for some time, and I know Councilor Starr has been a proponent as well. And so here you are, and we are thankful that you're here. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having us. Should I'll introduce myself again?
Sure, why not? It's just in case I pronounce your name wrong, all that good stuff.
Oh, no, you did perfectly.
Excellent.
My name is Doreen with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance, and I'm here with Eric Hess, who is he's the chairman of our board of directors, and he's a longtime commercial fisherman, and he lives in Barnstable. Some of you may be familiar with the Fishermen's Alliance, but I'm going to briefly outline who we are for others who may not be. The Fishermen's Alliance was started in 1991 by a group of fishermen who were worried the Cape's small boat fleets would disappear if managers didn't start paying more attention to the environment and sustainable fishing. 30 years later, we just had our anniversary a couple years ago. Our belief is much the same, and we take our lead from our fishermen members and are involved in advocacy, research, education, and policy to make sure local fisheries are not only just a vital part of the Cape's present and past, but also its future, which is why we partner with the State Division of Marine Fisheries and UMass Boston's Urban Harbors Institute on port-by-port profiles and analysis of the Massachusetts commercial fishery. The report provides an overview of commercial fishing in Massachusetts, and for the first time, describes conditions in each municipality that has a commercial home port, which is basically every town on the Cape, which is fortunate. The report is built around survey results from harbor masters and fishermen, so the harbor master in your town, the fishermen in your town, as well as state landings data, it highlights both the important role that commercial fishing plays in the state's economy, as well as the access and infrastructure challenges that limit the industry's current operations as well as its growth. Our visit tonight is part of an effort by us and DMF to visit every town on the Cape that has a commercial port and elevate the awareness and fisheries profile everywhere. Barnstable is my 13th town. I feel I'm actually ignoring you guys over there because I'm tilted this way, but one of the reasons why the state published a report is because many people don't understand the enormous economic value commercial fisheries have. For example, how many of you knew that Massachusetts commercial fisheries were valued at $802 million ex-vessel in 2021? That's $802 million. Anyone? No. That means the total amount of fishermen was paid for the catch, all species, before that harvest was resold in markets or restaurants. Just for comparison, that's about the same as the value of all of Alabama's crops. The Cape is a huge contributor to that number. We have many small ports, but added together, they exceed the value of Gloucester by 20 million. So that's 73 million versus 53 million, and those numbers have only grown since they were first tallied for the port study. The Cape is also unusual because all the towns still have a commercial fishing industry. The ports are also interdependent. Fishermen often don't just use one port, they use ports in different towns, depending on the season or what they are catching. They will move from town to town. Those numbers obviously don't include all the indirect benefits of fishing, people going to see the boats in Hyannis Harbor, eating in restaurants, buying art, fish mugs. At Bismore Park, there's a huge painting, which I'm sure you guys know, of the sea captain. And those art shanties are based on fishing shanties. So fishing is intertwined with the culture of every town on the Cape. And there are a lot of industries that depend on the town's connection to commercial fishing. Barnstable has one of the most successful fisheries on the Cape and a high potential for growth. Your town also has a lot of comparatively young, hardworking fishermen. I know there's not a lot of young people on the Cape, and I always just want to mention that. So we should have more young people on the Cape who are making a good living on the water and could grow their businesses in the town's economy with attention to the working waterfront. Oysters alone were worth $10 million to the Cape's economy, and Its success helps keep families on the Cape. It matches the mom and pop family farm culture the Cape is known for. I just wanted to go over some details in the Barnstable's port profile, which you have, or you might have in your packets. If not, I'll just send it to you, but it's on the screen. I have some of the numbers. If you could go maybe to, that's a good one. Here we go.
We do have it in front of us, just so you know.
Oh, that's okay. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, yep, that's exactly it. Barnstable's catch numbers have almost rebounded to pre-COVID levels. Before COVID, commercial harvesters landed 23 million pounds of catch worth $17 million. In 2021, there was 18 million pounds of catch and were landed, and they were worth $17 million. So the amount of money is the same, but the catch was a little lower. A lot of increase in the state numbers has to do with sea scallops and also lobster. Those changes required fishermen being nimble and smart and changing up business plans. Fisheries will change over the years, and fishermen can capitalize on those changes as long as their working waterfronts and the infrastructure is protected. I'm missing a page, but I have numbers for numbers for, actually, I'm definitely missing a page. I have numbers for 2021 that I just wanted to go over just because they're more recent. We should be getting 2022's numbers soon. But Barnstable has a large coastline with many harbors and a lot of opportunity for growth. It is the second most valuable port in the Cape behind Chatham. It is only second to Wellfleet in oyster value. So Wellfleet is $6 million and Barnstable is $5 million. It is the Cape's third most valuable town in terms of striped bass and summer flounder. So that's third most valuable, striped bass and summer flounder, and fourth in sea scallop. So these are 2021 numbers. Fourth in sea scallop, fourth in black sea bass, fourth in quahogs, and you guys are first across the Cape in South Shell clams. As far as diversity of catch goes, Barnstable is comparable to Chatham, meaning that you have lots of different fisheries. You're not dependent on one specific fishery. Like Wellfleet is famous for oysters, you guys have lots of different fisheries. There are a variety of ways towns can support the commercial fisheries. For instance, Chatham, Harwich, and Provincetown, as well as Sandwich, dedicate berthing spaces and other facilities to commercial fishing, strictly to commercial fishing. Strengthening the fleet, Harwich and Chatham also have reduced fees for commercial vessels, as do Orleans and Eastham and Provincetown. They all have reduced fees. There are other things that need to be protected as well. Perhaps a fisherman needs to store their gear in their yard or in their residence. That is a protected use in Orleans. I don't know if it's protected in Barnstable, but it's protected in Orleans. Dredging is also vital, as it is how fishermen get to work. Those who filled out the survey in Barnstable mentioned the need for new boat ramps, better offloading facilities. There's a lack of docking space. There's dredging needs. There's limited parking during the summer, and there's conflicts with other users. The Fishermen's Alliance is willing to help the town, and we're very happy to help with letters of support for grants, and we can actually supply certain grants that you guys might be eligible for. And we also want to let you know we're working with the towns, county, and state on another need document in the study, which is dredging. And we don't have any specific asks for tonight. We just wanted to share the breadth and the economic importance of the industry, so you could keep it in mind as projects might come up on the working waterfront that you may need to support, or issues come up that fishermen bring forward. And I did want to do some of the numbers of how many fishermen in town that I have. They're in front of you, but so there's 23 permanent harvesters with the Barnstable address, 104 vessels with the Barnstable home port, 6,891 trips landing in town, so almost 7,000 trips landing in town, 264 active permanent harvesters landing in town, and 47 active dealers purchasing in Barnstable, and your number of dealers has gone up since this was compiled. 2021, you have higher numbers for dealers and fishermen. And if you want more specific numbers broken out by the ports that you have in your town, I have those as well. So thank you very much for listening. I know that Eric had wanted to say
a few words. If you'll humor me, I wanted to echo Councillor Mindy's comments about John Reed. He was a teacher of mine. I had great respect for him, and my condolences to his family. So from my perspective on the water, the waterfront has become a circus in the last few years, and there's not much we can do about that. The demand among the recreational boating community is fierce, and we as fishermen understand that, and it puts great demand and stress on the town's resources, both the regulatory, the people that control the waterfront, the facilities, and so forth. The result for commercial fishermen is that we're gradually being squeezed out of opportunities to take advantage of the town's infrastructure. And so if you look in the port profile, you'll see that several towns on the Cape have actually set aside and dedicated areas of the waterfront and facilities and infrastructure for the commercial industry. A part of the Cape's heritage and some of the reason why people come to the Cape, for fresh seafood. The overview, the walkway viewing platform that was recently built in Chatham has how many visitors in a year? It's on the order of several 100,000 people go to see the boats unload there. And there's no comparable facility like that in Barnstable. I'm not asking for that, but I am making the observation that we could do a better job of dedicating access points and infrastructure for commercial fishery access in the town. And we've already scheduled a discussion with the harbor master, Brian Taylor. And basically, I do have an ask, and that is that the council essentially consider adopting a similar stance towards the use of waterfront infrastructure. That is, that a portion of it be set aside for commercial fishing. I'd also add 2 points to that, as a fisherman who grew up in Barnstable and has spent his entire career fishing here on the Cape, I compete with those other fishermen in those other towns who have the advantage of subsidized infrastructure and infrastructure set-asides in those towns. So that's what has caused me to do most of my fishing in those other towns. Unfortunately, I would so much rather, drive the 10 minutes from my home in West Barnstable to the harbor in Barnstable to do my fishing. The other thing is, all fisheries on the Cape and the Cape small boat fleet are seasonal. So lots of us have a month here or there where we do gear work or we have time to, reevaluate our business. And into that gap, most recently, has jumped opportunities with places like Vineyard Wind. There are a number of other companies like Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, Hydroid, Teledyne, lots of companies on the Cape that need vessels on the water, whether it's for sea testing, scientific research, and in the case of the wind energy companies, boats to transfer personnel, monitor installation activities, and so forth. And Vineyard Wind especially has prioritized making opportunities available to local fishermen because they realize the impact that the wind farms will have on the fishing fleets. So that's a great opportunity for us, but we won't be able to take advantage of those opportunities without having the infrastructure that is available in some of these other towns. And is still, Barnstable doing a good job of it. I just think we could do better, and that's what I'm here to advocate for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Okay. Now it is time. Any follow-up, Doreen, are you open to answering questions from the council?
Yes, we want to do that.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. So with that, councilor comment, Madam Vice President?
Yeah, I come from a family that fished out of Orleans for years, and we are in the process of redesigning our Hyannis Harbor at this point, so it might be a timely conversation to have. It's part of our history that is unique to us, and I feel like we don't see any of it anymore in arenas like this, right? My first thought when you guys came in was we should have you at Hyannis Open Streets to talk to people about what the livelihood of the Cape was and is and how vibrant it still is here. But I wonder if maybe either Elizabeth Jenkins or Dan Santos could speak to what's happening at Hyannis Harbor and if there's a possibility to have a conversation about set-asides for commercial fisheries and really making that part of Hyannis downtown, because that would be an amazing addition to Main Street, really. Would either of you care to comment on that?
Only that we're going to be replacing our bulkhead, and we would be delighted to.
Can you come to a microphone? I'm sorry, you're being caged.
Thank you, Dan.
It's not me, it's the pink microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. They just want to hear you on television.
Yes. So we're going to be replacing the bulkhead in Hyannis Harbor in the next few years. We've gotten significant grant to help with that work. But we'd be delighted to have a conversation about your needs and whether or not that can be accommodated in a significant and meaningful way in the project.
And I believe there is some set aside there. I know there's, I've walked by and there is some, and again, I'm not a commercial fisherman, Mr. Hess, by any, nor do I play one on television. But so I'm not sure if that's significant enough, you know what I mean, from what you're saying. But at the same time, I know that there is talk about it. And our town engineer, Griffin Bedoin, when we did a presentation with the Lieutenant Governor Polito at the time, and where there was great talk about that. And I believe is it over $2 million what's the grant number? I forget. I'm sorry.
Grant was $1 million.
$1 million. Okay. Gotcha. So, okay. So we will, again, more than happy to answer any more further questions in regards to that. Like you said, thank you, Director Santos, for being available on the spot. I appreciate you.
Yeah, we can reach out to
Yeah.
him. I mean, Eric knows, Captain Hess knows a lot more than I do, but
right.
From what I understand, the front is transient, which is great because sometimes Cape fishermen use it and other fishermen need to use it. But I do not think that there are set-asides from what you guys are talking about. But if there were, it would be great to have, 4 or 5 at the least, right? Because there was traditionally some Cape, like sea clammers there, et cetera. But I do not think that they're there anymore. But I will happily talk to Mr. Santos.
Sure. Thank you.
And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Okay. I just see boats there and I see trucks picking up fish, so I just assume that's and the boats don't seem to change. They seem to be consistently commercial boats and those slips. So anyway, but further discussion would be great. Thank you. Any other council? And we have resident commercial fisher people, I should say, fish people on our council that can speak to things as well. So any comment on this side? Councilor Lucky.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. Fantastic presentation, and I think we ought to do everything we can to encourage. I mean, when the dollar amounts that you mentioned are fantastic and quite impressive. And we always talk about, the jobs here on Cape Cod, and we talk about the tourist industry, and you really hit both of those. We have so many lower paying jobs. You have good paying jobs. You have a vibrant industry that speaks to our history, and it's certainly a tourist attraction. I wasn't aware of that pier that you talked about at Chatham. I mean that is the observation. That's so fantastic. I mean, this is genuine. It's authentic. And I would hope that we could do everything we can. And then I just had a question, was a little bit off, more into federal regulation. And I knew that Senator Collins imposed a moratorium on the, I think 5 years maybe, for the lobster fishermen. Are we under that same restriction here in terms of the protection of the right whales? Because I know that's another industry too, with all the whale watching out of Provincetown and out of Barnstable Harbor. It's kind of out of the discussion a little bit, but just curious if those regulations are impacting the lobsters, the
I'm
catch.
familiar with, they attached a bill to an appropriations rider to essentially make it an act of Congress that the Maine lobster fishery, and I'm not sure if it's the Gulf of Maine lobster industry, which would encompass all of the fishery down to the Cape, or just for the state of Maine. I'm guessing it was for the Gulf of Maine, though. They made an act of Congress stating that the fishery was sustainable and not dangerous to the right whales currently conducted. So they're essentially untouchable for that 6-year period for further regulation, meaning that the controversy over the on-demand buoys they've been talking about, buoyless traps, has sort of been pushed aside. And it has a lot of people in the environmental community scratching their head about what the implications might be for right whales and entanglement. So it's still being sorted out, I think. It was kind of a curveball to come in an appropriations rider like that.
But I did want to say one thing. Dan McKiernan, who's the director of DMF, he has been with me to a couple towns. He can't go to every town. He did want to come tonight. Massachusetts put in regulations to protect like all whales, but the North Atlantic right whale a long time ago. We were ahead of the curve. We're ahead of Maine. Nothing against Maine lobsters, but we already have the breakaway lines. We already have the areas are closed. They get off the water. They're not even on the water for the months the right whales are here. So we were way ahead. We have done, and we will continue to do more than is required to protect whales in general. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear, just for the viewing audience.
Councilor Cusack, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Doreen. Thank you, Mr. Captain. Appreciate the reminder, right, of the role that this core industry has played in the region and our local history. I was fortunate enough to be a shell fisherman in Katuitt for the last bunch of seasons before taking on this job. And so, and I think you're right, and to mention it, Betty, about what goes on in Chatham. It's a central part of my experience going out there. I make sure that folks are out there, that they do that. And so you've bringing attention to highlighting something that is extraordinarily near and dear to our identity is a really welcome addition to the conversation. And tomorrow I'll be going over and being at Marine and Environmental Affairs myself, so this will be informing part of the conversation that I've got going on with them tomorrow. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cusack. Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. And welcome, Doreen and Eric, and I'm proud to have you here to represent the maritime industry on the Cape. We are proud of this culture, and I, for one, would be happy to support enabling this industry, which has become a signature in our community, to be supported with the infrastructure and the accommodations it takes to maintain this fleet, fin fish as well as shellfish. There are also significant multiplier effects on the Cape, economic effects, supporting the, boat builders and engine repairers and all the other gear that it takes to help you do your job to bring us some healthy food, healthy fresh food. And I should say that I support, and I think our town should support, the maritime culture at all our ports and landings. I am proud to say that Barnstable has underway a project to repair and improve the landing at Scudder Lane in Barnstable Village. Although I know that that is a road that doesn't lend itself to parking, and that turns out to be the choke point in for not only the commercial fleet but also recreational shellfishers. And I do appreciate where our fishing and shellfishing industries have done to bloom out the arts culture and the tourism that makes that gives Barnstable its identity. So I'm hoping that town staff and the town council will hear what you've had to say and help step on the gas as we have ever competing resources for not only financial resources, but also for a limited resource in access to the water sheet in each of our embayments. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Councilor Representative, anyone? Moving on to this side, Councilor Atzos, please.
Dorian and Eric, thank you for your presentation. Eric, it's been a long time. Good seeing you again. I'm asking a question as someone whose extent of fishing is surf casting off Colville's Beach or the jetty at Calamus, so I'm going to need a little bit of education. So my familiarity with commercial fishing vessels, I grew up on Ocean Street, and the vessels that are there on a regular basis, they have their permanent slip there year round. So when you're talking about commercial, are you talking about those large vessels, or are you talking about this, more, if you will, mom and pop commercial vessels, commercial fishermen?
I specifically tried to stay sort of not non-specific about the need.
Okay.
The industry is very changeable, and so people come in and out of different fisheries as the fish become available.
Right.
We don't even know what species is going to show up next from the mid-Atlantic, so different people will want to engage in those fisheries. So I guess the idea of making a portion of the waterfront available as a working waterfront would accommodate that kind of varied use, rather than the traditional model, which is you're on a waiting list. And right now in Barnstable, you're on that waiting list with everyone else, all the recreational, anyone who wants to use a boat. So, there is no special list for commercial users as there are in some of the other towns that we, as I said, we compete with.
All right. Thank you. And may I have a follow-up, if I may?
Please.
In your, obviously you've done a lot of research on this. Are there dedicated access points, potentially new ones that you've identified that you'd like to see potentially developed to go along with what we already have in place and increasing those together, new areas and existing?
Well, I'm not going to spend the kind of money you're talking about for roads, if that's what you mean. But I do see that there's room for improvement in existing facilities. So, without large construction expenditures or anything like that, I think there are some things that we could do to really improve the situation on the ground now. And then we could, meet with other constituents. I'm sort of on the other end of my career, but as Doreen mentioned, there's a whole group of younger fishermen who have some great ideas about, what could work in the waterfront nowadays. So we're committing to meeting with those people and helping get those views expressed.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Great questions, Councilor Hatzis. Councilor Starr, please.
Well, thank you, Doreen, and
Bring that microphone right up to you, and we want to hear everything you have to say, Councilor Starr.
I'm learning.
Step up to the mic, sir.
So thank you for the presentation, and I'm looking forward to reading the report and the latest numbers as they come through. My precinct is on the north side. Eric's boat has been there for many years. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, depending on what he's fishing for. The economic driver that fishing is important in Barnstable because whenever we apply for a dredging grant, they want to know that that the whale watch is there. They want to know that there's some economic driving, there's something there that it's part of the grant, and they like to see that. I've had conversations with many, and also with Harbor Master Brian Taylor, about maybe looking at the regulations that like in Sandwich, where there are commercial slips. We have 5 charter boats that are there that go out every day that people spend $400 for half a day, but if the person loses their slip, the whole business loses the slip. So could we dedicate some of those? We've talked about, we're in discussions about that. Aquaculture, there are about 50 oyster clam grants in Barnstable Harbor, so that's at least 50 people. There are probably 100 people out there some days working. They produce probably 4.5 million oysters a year at 50 cents a piece wholesale. That's just the north side. So I worked on a boat, an eco tour boat out of Barnstable Harbor for 4 years, but we lost our slip because of the private marina could make more money with a different boat. So there are a lot of pressures, and I hope this conversation continues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. Any other comment? Thank you very much. It's been very informative. I appreciate you being with us, and thanks again for your patience.
Thanks. Can I ask one question?
You sure can.
What is your family's, in Orleans, what's your family's name?
Cullum was my
Oh, it's the-
uncle.
okay.
Yeah, Stuart Cullum.
'Cause you do a
And
lot of work
his
on it.
son Andrew, my cousin Andrew, did some too, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a great day. Have a great night. Thank you. Okay, moving into our orders of the day. Our first item of new business, Councilor Steinhilber, please, if you could, item number 2023-128.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to open the public hearing on item 2023-128, appropriation order in the amount of $300,000 to fund disposal costs at the Solid Waste Division of the Department of Public Works as written.
We have a first and a second. We have Director of DPW, Dan Santos, here for the rationale, please.
Good evening again. Dan Santos, Director of Public Works. The Solid Waste Division operates the Transfer Station and Recycling Center in Marston's Mills. The services provided at the transfer station are funded by fees charged to users and sticker holders. These fees are used to cover the costs associated with operating and disposing of items accepted from users and sticker holders. The appropriated budget is calculated using estimated material totals from previous years and expected disposal costs. Actual amounts may and do vary from year to year. In fiscal year 2023, the transfer station experienced increases to the amount of recyclables, hard-to-recycle items, and construction and demolition material disposed of at the facility. This unexpected increase has increased the cost of disposal incurred by the Solid Waste Division. Preparation for the Solid Waste Division budget for fiscal year 2023 did anticipate some increases to material being disposed of. The Solid Waste Division charges fees for disposal of a multitude of items and offers stickers for fee to residents. The fees charged are calculated to cover the costs of disposal for materials disposed of at the facility. Due to the increase in the materials disposed of at the facility, we're experiencing an increase in associated revenue, which is expected to cover the increased incurred disposal costs. There are adequate cash reserves to cover this funds transfer. Current certified cash reserves are $1,737,618. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Santos. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here for public comment? Do we have anybody who would like to participate remotely? Director Poyant.
There is no one on public comment at
Okay.
this time.
Then I would close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Not seeing any. Just double check. Okay. If we can signify approval by raising your hand and saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a roll call vote. I know. Sorry. So that it doesn't actually say roll call, but that's okay. Town Clerk Ann Quirk for the roll call, please.
Counselors. Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusick.
Yes.
Rapgrissetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Passes 13.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. If I could just ask Town Council Assistant if you could review the rest of the items that are on the agenda. If there's anything else that's marked a majority vote, full council, that's actually supposed to be a roll call, please let me know. Item number two. What's that? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, item number, moving on, Madam Vice President, please, item number 2023-129.
Yes, item number 2023-129, appropriation order in the amount of $206,391 to fund information technology security improvements. This is a public hearing with a roll call majority vote.
Second.
First and a second, and we have Director of IT, Jim Benoit, with us, Benoit, for the rationale. Just the green light might need to be on too. On the button, on the mic. There we go.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So Jim Benoit, Director of IT. I'm before you tonight to request a supplemental appropriation for the purpose of funding several IT security improvements. These security improvements are intended to increase our protection against cyber attacks and also increase our resiliency and reliability of our IT systems. Originally, we had planned these improvements for fiscal year 2024. However, the need to complete these upgrades has become more urgent. The threat from cyber attacks is increasing. We've even seen this locally in our own region lately with a couple of notable things in the news. Also, a recent attempted threat on our own system, while it was successfully prevented, really did highlight the need for us to make these improvements as soon as possible. This supplemental appropriation budget request would fund several IT security improvements, including upgrading the town's email server and Microsoft Office software, implementing an enhanced anti-malware program for all town PCs, implementing a software patch management system for all town PCs, and also modernizing our backup and disaster recovery strategies. These improvements would provide several benefits that would result from this, mainly improved security and reliability of the town's email and Microsoft Office software, enhanced protection for all of our end-user PCs with software patch management and threat monitoring, and a more robust backup and disaster recovery procedure, which would provide increased level of protection, faster recovery if we are ever hit with a cyber incident or any other disaster affecting our IT systems. To summarize, our reliance on computers and IT systems has greatly increased over the years, and it's probably going to continue to do so. At the same time, the threat from cyber attacks is constantly increasing. While we'll never be completely immune from such attacks, funding this request would enable us to take some immediate steps right now to reduce our risk and to increase our resiliency going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Benoit, for that. And here we go. I'm sorry, my agenda is double-sided here, flipping back and forth. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here for public comment? Is anybody that would like to participate remotely?
There is no one on Zoom for this item.
Then I would close the public comment and open it for council discussion. Councilor Rapcasetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you, Jim. Will you be coming back to us soon with an acceptance of the grant? Because I know Barnstable was a recipient of the municipal cyber grant, or maybe you don't know about that.
The security awareness training?
The municipal cyber security awareness grant. I think Barnstable was one of the municipalities.
Yes, we did receive that last year and again this year. That's to provide cybersecurity training for employees.
Training. So you've already received that, or it's a recurring grant that you apply for? And how much does Barnstable benefit? Because I think it was $250 that was going to be spread out over.
Yeah, it's not an actual dollar amount. It's actually they provide the training to us, so it's kind of at no cost. So I don't know how many towns they have doing it now, but it's kind of a statewide training program. So it's not an actual dollar amount. It's kind of we take part in the program.
Okay, thank you. And this is a long time coming. This software update.
Yeah.
I know that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rapcasetti. Any other Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque, and thank you very much, Director Benoit. I would say that this expenditure of $206,000 will be well spent, and I consider it a bargain.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Any other? Councilor Lutke, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. I just had a question about the fiscal impact. It says that the subsequent year recurring costs are estimated to $262,691. How does that compare to what it currently is? Without, is this adding to that?
Correct. These are additional services we will be providing that would cost additional money going forward.
What is it normal? I mean, what would it be without this?
I mean, our budget was, I think, 1.7 million in last fiscal, so it's adding on to that.
So every year you'll be adding on 261,000 going forward?
Correct.
to that. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor King. Anyone else? Councilor Atzos, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you, Director Benoit. So I know this is primarily an upgrade to the systems. Will your staff be doing this implementation, or will you have a systems implementer coming in and doing it?
It'll be a combination. We do have a vendor that we'll work with for the server upgrades.
Okay, and just to follow up, is this a vendor you've worked with before and they know the system? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Atzos. Any other comment on this side? Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you. Thank you for doing a great job of breaking this out and letting us understand the ongoing cost for this.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I just was thanking him for the good presentation. Do you anticipate, and this would be in fiscal '24, any significant upgrades that we'll be needing to do to the actual computers, and that will add to your probably ask for next year?
Potentially. I mean, another thing we're looking at is upgrading or moving the web server to an offsite host. So right now our web server is hosted internally. So that potentially could add some additional cost down the road.
Okay. The other question, I think I might have asked it the last meeting, is I know we were vulnerable with this potential cyber attack and our web. Let's see, our web communications, we had to kind of shut down all our meetings. Is there any thought that we're going to separate that out so that we're not as vulnerable going forward?
Yeah, that's definitely one thing we're looking at. It's not included in this.
Okay.
But we are looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Schnapp. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any more discussion.
If I may just clarify one thing.
Sure.
So that the recurring amount of $260-something thousand, it's that amount going forward. It's not increasing every year. It's just that amount added to our base budget every year.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Okay, not seeing other further discussion. Roll call majority vote, please.
Councilors Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
That's 13 yes.
That is unanimous. I just want to say thank you, Director Benoit, for putting that together. And this was probably going to be most likely a CIP presentation. We're just bringing it up a little bit early to move things forward. So I really appreciate that. And of course, it just left the room, but Town Manager Elsa's support in moving in that direction as well to make this happen. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the next item of new business. Council Mendes, please. 2023-130. And I just want to welcome Director of Facilities for the Town of Barnstable School Department, Michael Lambros, and the Superintendent of Schools, Sarah Ahern. And he's going to read the item.
This is old business, item number 2023-131. Order authorizing the taking of road... I already checked that one off. This is item number 2023-130. Appropriation order in the amount of $1,444,398 for the school department for the purpose of funding the Barnstable Public School District-wide LED light replacement project. So public hearing, majority vote, full council.
Second.
We have first and a second. And again, Superintendent Sarah Ahern and Michael Lambros here for the rationale. And you could use that table if you want to, or you're more than, it's whatever you feel more comfortable with. Just make sure the microphone's on. There we go. As long as the light's green. Thank you.
There we go. The school department is requesting that the town council approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $1,444,398. This is for a special project that would permit us to replace our existing fluorescent lights and incandescent fixtures to LED at 8 of our site locations. This is part of a project in collaboration with the Cape Light Compact. We would ordinarily see this come forward in a capital improvement plan, but the time is of the essence. Future availability of LED subsidies is uncertain, which has accelerated the priority of this project. And by doing so now, we could begin implementation over April vacation and this summer. The total project cost is estimated to be just over $1.8 million, but there are subsidies, as I had mentioned, that would come back to the town of Barnstable, and the total cost for the project is estimated to be $630,138 for the town after the reimbursements come back. There is an estimated payback period of time because of the efficiency of the LED lights, with a savings of over $200,000 annually, with just over a 3-year estimated payback. And that annual savings does not take into account the additional costs of bulbs and labor that are involved in replacing the fluorescent and incandescent fixtures. So this had school committee approval back in October, which then permitted an application to the Cape Light Compact. They voted in January to approve the project, and we're seeking additional appropriation from the general fund reserves.
Great, thank you. And this is a public hearing. Is anybody here who would like to participate in public comment? And Director Poyant, do we have anybody here to participate remotely?
There is no one for this item.
Okay, thank you. Then we would close the public comment, open it up to council discussion. Anybody that would like to ask a question, make a comment. Councilor Neary, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the presentation. I did notice the current kilowatt hour. Is that contracted at 18%? Because I can tell you it's running a lot higher than that in most cases, especially in commercial basis. So the savings would actually be dramatically more if it stays at the levels that we're seeing and where they're going.
Are you saying the price of 18 cents per kilowatt hour?
Mm-hmm.
I believe at the high school we do have a contracted rate due to the solar on the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Dave, is the whole district contracted at 18? So yes, the whole district is contracted.
If I may, is that an annual redo on that contract, or does it last 2, 3, 4, 5? I'm just curious.
I'd like to welcome Director of Asset Management, David Anthony, to the microphone, please. Further discuss. Respond.
Good evening. David Anthony. I'm also the Cape Light Compact Governing Board rep. The Cape Light Compact, at the request of all of the municipalities on the Cape, took all of the electric load that the municipalities have, and the town of Barnstable has 14 megawatts, which is like 14 million kilowatt hours every year. And that's town, school, airport, that's water pollution control, that's everyone. They went out for a 3-year fixed rate bid. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, because we're in year 2 of that bid. So we have a contracted rate for the supply side that's 8 cents per kilowatt hour for just the electricity. Many people are seeing fluctuating rates that are double that. And in some of the commercial short-term 3-month accounts, they're actually considerably even higher than that. That's just the nature of the electric business that is in New England. But we are in a good spot right now through until July 1st, 2024.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Anthony. Any other questions, comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Mr.
I would have looked to my left again.
John?
Left, right, left.
Oh, thank you for the presentation. Just a question out of curiosity. In the chart, most of the procurement types are CLC contract, but there are 2 RFPs. Is that just the size and the requirement that you have to go?
Yes, so as of this November, Chapter 25 MGL, the limit is $300,000 per location per project. So those 2 projects are over that $300,000 threshold.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Any other question? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, and congratulations on being lucky, right? So with that, roll call majority vote, please, Town Clerk and Quirk.
Counselors Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapp Grassetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
It passes 13 yes.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Moving forward to the next item of old business, Councilor Neary, please, if you could, item number 2023-131.
My pleasure, Mr. President. This is old business, may be acted upon, and it will require a roll call, two-thirds full council vote. It is item number 2023-131. It's an order authorizing the taking of road easements by eminent domain for sewer and water purposes over certain private roads in Centerville known as Earl's Court. Nobadir Road, Quissett Road, Christina's Path, Captain Ellis Lane, Jenny's Path, Nancy's Lane, and a private way adjacent to Lot 11 is shown on a plan filed in Plan Book, page 18, Book 288 at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds, as written.
Second.
We have first and second, and we have Attorney Charlie McLaughlin for the rationale, please. Welcome.
You're not on.
Is your microphone on? That we
It looked green. Sorry, we'll try that again. Sorry, this is the first of a series of roadway presentations that will be coming before you, presumably for several years to come. We are proceeding with the plans to install sewers and related infrastructure in Centerville, as you well know. These proposed takings of easements in existing private ways are the first in a series of takings that are contemplated in order to deploy sewer lines in accordance with the town's approved comprehensive wastewater management plan. The taking will also allow the town to cost-effectively install water mains where needed while the roadways are opened and before curb-to-curb repaving. The timing completion of these takings will also qualify this work for state revolving fund monies in accordance with state funding requirements. Utilizing the eminent domain procedure will acquire these easements, will assure clear title to the property, which is necessary to qualify for the SRF funding. Because the value of the improvements exceeds the value of the easement within the travel roadways, there is no provision in the taking for the award of monetary damages. The fiscal impact is none at this time, and I do want to give you a brief supplemental few comments to what Manager Ells had provided earlier. We're using the easement process because, frankly, you're either going to acquire easements or you're going to acquire the fee, and obviously I think it was clear to us as we were preparing this that there would be a robust debate and examination of the cost and benefits of acquiring the fees, and then that was not a discussion that needed to be rushed and not a discussion that should be quickly concluded. There's a lot to consider there, and I know that there will be a lot of give and take on that as you acquire the information. So in order to meet the deadlines that are required, we started, we've got a small group of us working together, the town engineer, the town surveyor, Attorney Bernie Kilroy, Attorney Ruth Dillingham, and myself, and we're meeting every couple of weeks. You can imagine the enormous amount of detail dealing with all of these roadways and all of the frontages and the owners and the mortgagees who are entitled to notice, and the list goes on from there. And the thought was that we will continue to process these in a fashion directed by DPW so that they can tell us what the next phase is. We'll be working on that and have a timely taking in place so that we can certify title to the property to the SRF funding folks in Boston. The key point, or just a couple of key points, I think, so you can understand, might help you set the expectations and understandings related to fee versus easement situations. We're going with the fee, and when you're, with the easement, and there are really three ways to acquire easements in this scenario. One is that we can approach each of the individual owners and ask for their assent. That obviously is, as a practical, this is not a small project, and even in this grouping, there's, I believe, a couple of hundred property owners involved. It's just not feasible to go out and spend time individually going through the paperwork and coming to an agreement in time. I think there's also the risk that some folks may not understand the process, and if would be their right to consult with their counsel. All that adds time that we just don't have to keep these projects on time for the bidding process, the SRF funding guarantees, et cetera. And so for those reasons, we eliminated that right off as an approach to this. The second way to go about it is that one of our Massachusetts statutes says that on a private roadway, someone who has frontage on the roadway has attendant to that frontage right the right to bring in utilities, and which is even if the documentation relating to the ownership of that property or the roadway or the interest in the roadway is silent as to the right to bring in electricity and telephone and gas and all the rest of it. The statute was created to address that void and make clear that a private owner, regardless of whether or not his or her neighbors agree with the proposition, that they can come in and simply by the fact that they front on the roadway, they could request it. And that was thought to be a pretty viable option to this. Still maybe not the best, but it was certainly one. All we had to do was find an owner who wanted to do that, get the necessary paperwork from them, and we're off to the races. It did beg the question that if the person that was giving you the request to bring in utilities, i.e. sewer and or water, only lived halfway into the subdivision, it begged the question, does that person's grant of right or their request necessarily imply that we can continue the supply of sewer and water all the way to the end of the length of the road or the cul-de-sac at the end if it's a cul-de-sac in that fashion. And the consensus in the business was, yes, you can do it. All you need is one person on the road. And the statute seems to support that. There was, however, a recent appeals court case that, frankly, I think didn't understand the issue or, in most of the conveyance's views, got the decision wrong, and the question is now in limbo as to whether or not you must stop and not go further than the house that fronts on it, that the owner of which had requested it. So we eliminated that. The bottom line is we eliminated that as an option. By far the most desirable approach is to take an easement, and an easement only will be going down roughly the center of the roadways and having due regard for the installations that we know are in the roadway from other plans that are on file. It's efficient. We go through this process. We get a vote from you folks. We serve the notice of taking after 30 days. Our charter requires a 30-day hold on this type of vote before it becomes effective. So on day 31, we would go to record at the registry and then immediately provide notice to all of the property owners whose interest in the private roadway were being taken or affected by the easement. And at that point, the ultimate goal here is, one, to keep this moving quickly, and secondly, the absolute goal is that once a municipality exercises the right of eminent domain and records the notice of taking, the title is absolutely good in the municipality, regardless of what historical, as we all know, for those involved in real estate, we see these ancient interests that go back decades, and lines of folks have died out and their heirs still may have interest. It wipes every conceivable encumbrance that conflicts with the project out of the way, and you get good, clear record of marketable title, which is what SRF wants certified to them. So that's why we're going in this direction. We provided to you through Mrs. Lovell a copy of the appraisal by email yesterday. And the appraisal is important to show that, in Mr. Clancy's opinion, the appraiser and an appraiser of long standing in the Cape who was well respected, that the value of the improvements that we are making, particularly when they are capped at $10,000 or less, it'll be proportional among the owners sharing in that improvement, but in any event, capped at not more than $10,000. If you look at the cost of the roadway improvements with side-to-side curbing, strike that, curb-to-curb paving, and also with respect to the savings that will be realized as septic systems age out and need to be replaced at $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000 a pop, that obviously the math is that the property owner should be begging us, frankly, to be coming in, because it is with this cap in place, it presents a real opportunity for savings, better quality, water quality in the area, and obviously helping the Cape in all the ways that it's planned to. So we have started already on our next group. We'll probably be back to you in about 2 months, but that's a quick overview of where we're at, and we certainly would appreciate your support. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney McLaughlin. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here like to participate in public comment? Okay, not seeing any. Director Poyan, is there anybody who would like to participate remotely?
There is no one for this item on Zoom.
Okay, then that would close the public hearing on that. Open for council discussion. Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Charlie. Very understandable description of what we're trying to vote on. Is there any danger between our vote and the 30 days if there's any ownership changes on these?
I'm glad you asked that. One of the mechanical questions that we are dealing with, rather than waiting to do a much larger tranche of roadways, is that these are workable research projects that can be done in 4 to 6 or 8 weeks, given the number of roads involved. As soon as that tranche is ready for taking after 30 days after you vote, we go on record minimizing the likelihood that there will be transfers out. Nevertheless, as part of the recording of these roads, there will be a rundown done at the registry and to make sure that if there has been a change in ownership or added mortgages or any other circumstances that are obvious on the record, that will give us the opportunity to identify them and get a notice as required by law out to anybody that has a potential claim against us, to send that out. For everybody that's on the list, they'll be getting a certified letter from us notifying them of their right to claim damages and how to go about it and so forth. But again, we don't believe there is any compensable injury to their properties on this. So.
Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Any other comment, question on this side? Moving to this side. Councilor Luckey, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. I just wondered, is everybody on this list, have they been given notice that we are doing this vote tonight? Are they all aware of it?
Yes, we have, as we're designing the process to go for the next many years, we've all been sitting around with the statute in front of us, and the bottom line is that a mailing went out approximately 10 days to 2 weeks ago to every named owner on this, telling them that we were having this meeting this evening and that they'd be welcome to certainly listen to it, certainly welcome to come and attend. So we're confident that we've gotten notice out.
Thank you, Councilor King. Any other comment, question? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And not seeing any further discussion, Town Clerk Ann Quirk for the roll call 2/3 majority vote, please.
Thank you. Councilors Cusack.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
That is 13 yes.
It is unanimous. Thank you. And thank you for the Town Attorney's Office for your hard work in regards to that. I appreciate it. Moving to items of new business, Councilor Starr, please. Item number 2023-134.
This is new business, item number 2023-134. Authorization to expend a fiscal year 2023 Cultural District grant in the amount of $15,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural District Investment Grant Program for the Barnstable Village Cultural District.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a first and a second, and we have Director Elizabeth Jenkins with the rationale, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. This item is a grant acceptance. The town of Barnstable was awarded again this year 2 grants to support our 2 cultural districts designated here in the town of Barnstable. 2023-134 is in the amount of $15,000 going to support activities in the Barnstable Village Cultural District that support cultural district goals, including enhancing sense of place, the creative economy, and marketing the district as a cultural designation. I would like to credit Melissa Chartrand, our fantastic arts and culture coordinator, as well as Roberta Miller, the executive director of Cape Cod Arts Center, for all of the wonderful work they do up in the Barnstable Village Cultural District. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jenkins. Any questions for Director Jenkins in regards to this? And I would second that. A motion to, unofficially, of course, for Melissa, and kudos to her for her hard work in regards to that. Any other comments? Okay. Not seeing any. If you can signify your approval by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. And it is unanimous. Moving on to our next item of new business. Councilor Shaughnessy, please, if you could. Item number 2023-135.
Thank you, President Levesque. This is an item of new business, item number 2023-135, authorization to expend a fiscal year 2023 Cultural District grant in the amount of $15,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural District Investment Grant Program for the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District. This is new business, may be acted on by a majority vote.
Second.
We have first and a second. Back to you, Director Jenkins, the rationale, please.
Thank you. Similarly to 134, this grant from Massachusetts Cultural Council will support activities in the Hyannis High Arts Cultural District.
Okay, thank you very much. Any council discussion? Okay, not seeing any. If you could signify your approval by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
And it looks like it's unanimous from my quick look, and it is passing. Thank you. And looking to my right, please. Councilor Lutke, if you could. Item number 2023-136.
Okay, this is new business, may be acted upon majority vote. Item 2023-136, authorization to expend a fiscal year 2023 Cultural District grant in the amount of $5,600 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural Sector Recovery Grants for Organizations Program.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, not seeing any. If you could raise your hand, you can signify approval by saying aye.
Aye. No rationale?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Director Jenkins.
We were on a roll.
We are. I figured. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
In the theme of the other two, this grant is a little unique in that it is from Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural Recovery Sector Grant. The legislature appropriated money specifically to arts organizations across Massachusetts that were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We did see significant loss in revenue in our program during the operation of that, and in turn were awarded this $5,600 grant for MCC that will go back and be reinvested into the Hyannis Heights Artist Shanty program.
Excellent. Thank you. Any council discussion? Let's try it again. If you could signify your approval by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you very much, Director Jenkins. Sorry about that. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn. First and a second. Roll call vote, please. Yeah, we're going to do roll call.
So whatever you want.
We don't have to.
Counselors.
Yes.
Rapp Crissetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Absolutely.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis. I didn't.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
That's 13.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night.